On August 30th, 1976, Milagros vanished. She disappeared the day after her 22nd birthday. She was 4 months pregnant. Her family discovered she had been kidnapped. 47 years later, her family continues to search for her, hoping they can find Milagros.
My name is Rafael Perez. I am Milagros' brother. Milagros disappeared on August 30th, 1976. She had just turned 22 years old the day before, and she was pregnant, 4 months pregnant. Her and her partner were expecting their first child. I would say maybe 48 hours, we learned that she was kidnapped. Sunday was her birthday, and she went missing the following day, Monday. So the day of her birthday, Milagros had invited family for a dinner, like a birthday dinner. She lived in Astoria, Queens. That's a neighborhood that she and her partner lived. And the day before, she had called my sister-in-law. Her name is Maria, my oldest brother's wife. They had just had a baby a week prior. Nelson was born, and Maria and Nelson were home, and Milagros had offered, I'm going to be in Brooklyn tomorrow. I want to go and meet the baby, and also I want to go and help out with whatever chores, laundry you need. So they had a conversation, and they set up a date so that after Milagros had an appointment that morning on Monday, they had made plans so that after the appointment, a couple of blocks away, Milagros would go and spend the day. But that day, on her birthday, she had my parents over. She had a couple of my siblings. I can't remember why I didn't go, but I didn't go to her birthday party. I was like, oh, if I knew that I was going to see her again, I'm like, I wish I would have gone. So that evening, my parents, Milagros, I definitely know my brother Jose. I think my sister Milady was there. This is such a blur to a lot of us. Like, who was actually there? Because I've been doing the same thing that you're doing, interviewing my siblings. They were very happy because Milagro had just recently announced that she was expecting. This was going to be her 22nd birthday. The family had gone through a lot about this relationship, accepting the relationship that she had with this man. I think we talked about the process of her having to be married to a man in the Dominican Republic that was an arranged marriage. She was not committed to that. Finding love and being with the person she was committed. So this was a joyful thing. This was her celebrating, her family, and having her family celebrating her on her birthday. So it was what I would say was a joyful experience the day before. There were also two neighbors that were part of this. What I remember was my mom saying, like, that was weird that, two of her neighbors went to her birthday party. It was an intimate family gathering, and there's like two strangers, and she kept saying, like, and I didn't like the way that strangers were looking at her, and who are these people? Like how people would just like, they wouldn't say that at the party. They wouldn't question strangers, but then they would be like processing the things that they wanted to know but didn't get to ask. So that was an interesting thing. That was a conversation. I was like, so how was the party? And they were like, this is what was happening. And, there was like, they were talking about the disturbance about why would you invite two strangers into a family? But the story is, Milagros' boyfriend shared with me, and this is actually recently, I reconnected with him. He said, so here's what these two men were. These were two acquaintances of mine who lived around the block, and they had come across Milagros the day before. So this was apparently Saturday when Milagros was shopping for the meal. And they said, oh, you're Milagros, you're Dominican, right? And Milagro goes, yeah, I'm Dominican. And this one particular male, I believe he's like in his late 60s, Puerto Rican descent. He says, oh, so you must make a really good sancocho. If you're Dominican, you know what sancocho is. It's like this stew. It's like a stone soup, right? And Milagro goes, oh, as a matter of fact, I'm making sancocho tomorrow for my family, Sunday on her birthday. And she goes, as a matter of fact, why don't you come and join us? And that's how these two strangers were invited into my sister's birthday. No prior history, so there is just like, oh, he's an acquaintance and a neighbor. So my husband or my boyfriend knows them, so therefore I just invited them. Because he said, why are you inviting these people? And she goes, they're your friends, so why not? They asked me and I invited them. So it was that just casual last minute invitations. But I do remember like my mom was really disturbed by like the way this one man was looking at my sister while she was like serving and cooking and like socializing and hosting. So she just really was very much like disturbed by that. Like, who are these strangers and why were they looking at my sister in a certain way in front of her partner? So that was the only thing that she came feeling somewhat rattled by that experience. So then the next day, these are again accounts from her partner. So he goes, so what are the plans? She goes, well, I gotta go to, she was unemployed at that time. And being that she had a Brooklyn address, she had to go to the unemployment office in person that's located in our old neighborhood where we lived, where she used to live. So she would come from Astoria, Queens into Brooklyn for her weekly visit. I guess you have to like, your unemployment at the time would like help you gain employment or your unemployment benefits. So I'm not sure what the plan was, whether she was going to be employed. My sense was that she was pregnant, so I'm not sure how employable she was. This was a time where New York City was going through some sort of recession, so unemployment rate was really high. Opportunities were really low, and I don't know what the process was for her, if that was the case. But anyway, all that to say, she would come to Brooklyn for that, and then the plan that morning was that she had told her partner, well, after my appointment at 9 o'clock, I'm gonna go get something for the baby. I'm gonna get a gift, and then I'm gonna go over to Maria's house and I'm gonna help out, and then I should be home in the afternoon. That was the plan in the morning. He was the last person to see her. She travels by subway from Astoria, Queens to Brooklyn, Williamsburg. She goes to the unemployment office because we did receive her unemployment benefits. So we knew she made it there, but she never made it to my sister-in-law's house or my brother's house. That was the last thing that we found out in those days, that she had gone that far, but she never got there. So later that day, Juan, her boyfriend, called Maria, my sister-in-law, saying, hey, is Milagros still there? Because she hasn't shown up. She's not back. And Maria goes, well, that's strange. She never made it. She never came to visit. And Juan goes, well, what happened? Did she call you? So that's when, Juan started calling all of her siblings, obviously my mom. Everyone was like, back in the days, like, if whomever has a phone, we rang and it's like, did you hear from Milagros? Do you know anything? So that was pretty much what happened. Like, I want to say they recall, like, it must have been like after 4, because that's Juan came home sometime after 4 from work. So sometime after 4 p.m., that's when he noticed she's at home. He started calling. Everyone started calling one another, and no one has any information. So it's like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. There's still like all this phone calling, like, what do we do? 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, we hear nothing. No one hears anything, right? So no one hears what happened. No one hears from Milagros. So we're all like, did she get sick? Did she pass out? So like, we didn't know that she was having at that time like morning sickness, but we're like, did she pass out on the subway? So we're like, did she pass out on the streets? She had hospital. So we started like, what I recall, I was 9 at the time, but I remember like being really attentive to like what everybody was doing. Like, we're calling hospitals, we're calling the police, where the police is saying, well, she's how old? And, could you call back 24 hours? She's an adult, that's the process. So we're like, okay, we cannot get any, law enforcement to assist us. So we were doing what they said, like call hospitals, call family members. So we're just doing that. Like the network went like anyone that we knew was a friend of hers, like, did she go somewhere else instead of going to where she was going? So by this time it's like, we're up, midnight, and like, we're still waiting to hear, everyone's waiting by the phone. I remember clearly, like my brother and I, like, were like, can we go out? Because we lived like maybe 3-4 blocks from the site where she was last seen or she was expected. And we were like going around the blocks, like with my sister picture, asking strangers, like, have you seen this woman? And people were like, no. And it felt strange, but like, we were like, no, this is not strange. It's like, we're asking anyone, like, have you seen this woman? No. And we were like, I think it was the first time that I seen, like, we were out there like at midnight, like we would never be allowed to be out of the house up to 7 o'clock. So it's just like a blur, but I do remember like being part of like the search. And that night we didn't sleep. We were like up, and the more we, the more hours from the phone call after 4, like the more urgent it became. Like it was disturbing to not know what happened. There was, obviously a lot of anxiety, right? Like a lot of like, we don't know, like suspense in a very guttural, like, we just don't know, like, what happened? Is she safe? There was no knowing. So I think that the following day, it was just becoming more like real that something had happened because no one has heard from her. And I remember like a lot of planning, like, okay, when can we go to the police? When is 24 hours? And when I've interviewed my brothers, like my 2 older brothers, they must have been in their late 20s at that time, they said we were the one that went to the 90th precinct on South 5th Street in Brooklyn. That's the precinct, just like 3-4 blocks from the last place that she was seen. So they said, we'll go there in person. They were working, and they felt like that was what my mom had asked, like, how soon can we go to the precinct and report that, she's missing. So they went to the precinct and they reported, that she was missing, and then that was it. It's like, there will be an investigation, and days after that, that was part of it. There was a lot of interviewing, a lot of press interviewing my family. There was 2 Spanish news channels, Univision 41. I'm not sure what Channel 47 was, whatever that station is, but those were 2 of the stations that covered, and I want to say ABC covered it. So these were recollections from friends from the family that said, yeah, these were the news channels. But we were I think we were like in shock. We don't know exactly what was going on, but once the police was activated, and I don't even know like how the news came to know about my sister's, disappearance. I'm trying to think, like, did I ever have that realization that, oh my gosh, she's missing? I think it became more clearly after my sister's boyfriend and 1 or 2 of my brothers confronted one of the 2 men that came at her birthday. So what we do know is that one of the males that came to her birthday also disappeared. And the reason we know that is because my sister's boyfriend and my brother became suspicious. So they actually pursue that on themselves. I know that they said, like, in hindsight, we would have wanted the police to do that, but because it was taking the police so long to investigate, they chose to pursue the investigation themselves. So they interviewed this friend of the men who disappeared. Like, they went and asked, like, where is he? You know who he is. Tell us who he is. And this guy goes, I don't know where he went. I don't know who really he is. And my sister's boyfriend said, I'm coming back tomorrow. And if you don't produce any information, he made some sort of a threat. And that man, my understanding is he was some sort of undocumented. He disappeared as well. Like, he disappeared because I'm not sure what the threat was, but it's like, if you don't produce information, you're going to be in trouble. And my sense was that this person fled for his own protection, perhaps, but that was the only connection to who this other man was. So we only knew like his first name, the suspects. We had nothing to go on. But that's when we realized like something happened to my sister and it has to do with this man. Something happened. That's what we knew. So that was the only information we had. So with that, it was like, we were wondering, like, is this a kidnapping for ransom? You know, what are the intentions here? We didn't know. But my family was sort of like organizing, like, if this is what's happening, what do we need to do? So that's one of the realization, like something happened to my sister and we don't know what exactly, what was the reason for her kidnapping. Months later, we did learn through some investigation, and I'm sure this is police investigation or family investigation. So two things were happening. Police investigated the missing case report, but also my family hired private investigators. And the information is not clear how we got information that there were eyewitnesses from across the unemployment office that said a woman was seen against her will, coerced into a vehicle. It was a van, the plates were covered, and they described a male that seemed to match the man who was at my sister's birthday the night before. So this information kind of gave us a lot more. Like, we were able to put the pieces together and say, oh, my sister was kidnapped by someone after she exited the unemployment office. And that has been what we, that has been what we suspect happened. My mom's grief took up most of the space. Like, she would cry in the middle of the night and we would wake up to her sobbing, and like, that was disturbing because I think she was expressing what we were all feeling, having these moments where, like, when no one was around, like, she would express her grief, like profound pain,